Our speaker today, Adrian Peck, she is an expert on mammals, and she gives a nod, but she is, and she'll be spending most of the morning with us. Please ask questions at your will, and she'll get started here.
If you do find a bat on the ground, just know it might be there because it got knocked down, especially if it's windy or something. They cannot, like birds, they cannot take off from the ground. So sometimes they just need a little help. You can take a broom from afar and scooch it over to a tree, and they can climb up with their little thumbs on the tree and then swoop down into flight from there. But yeah, don't touch it. There's your clicker right here. Thank you so much. So yeah, my name is Adrienne Paquette. I am a naturalist at Clebwoods Nature Center. We would normally be having this class at Clebwoods Nature Center. So I apologize we are not there today to explore, but please do visit us. I will talk a little bit about some volunteer opportunities we have there. Our normal volunteer days are Tuesday mornings from 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. So if you are available on Tuesdays, we'd love to have you. Our volunteer opportunities include gardening. So we have native gardens. We also have vegetable garden, our heritage garden. So we keep it historical because part of our park is a historical park. We have a house that was built by the Kleb family. That was a German immigrant family from the 1800s. And so we do have about 130 acres of forest. And about 3 miles of trails. So we try to maintain the historical park as best as possible. It historically would be a prairie, so we don't keep it a prairie, but historically we try to maintain it as best as possible. The farm garden. We also have trail maintenance, and if you're into woodworking, we have woodworking opportunities as well. And then, of course, we have festivals. So a couple weeks ago, last week on the 9th, we had an Art in the Park festival where we celebrate art in nature. We also have an archaeology festival in November. And our biggest festival of the year is Hummingbird Festival in September. This year, it will be on September 12th. It's usually the second Saturday in September. But we always invite our Heartwood chapter to come and table. And so we will have a booth. So be prepared to be invited to volunteer for that. As a Heartwood member, I have served on the board. I have been voluntold to be on the board since 2016. I passed on my secretary position last year. But I still serve on the board as the Junior Master Naturalist chair. And so you will see me at your graduation with my couple of Junior Master Naturalists who will be graduating with you guys. And so if you have any questions about the Junior Master Naturalist program, I'm happy to answer that. If you have any Junior Master Naturalists 9 to 13 years old who would like to join me for next year, I would love to have them. We start go with the school year. So if you'd like to join me for that. One more thing I had, let's see. So volunteer, if you guys are interested in learning more about volunteering at a wildlife center, one of the places where I volunteer is at Friends of Texas Wildlife. I help to rehab the wild animals. So if you're interested in learning about that, I'm happy to answer questions there as well. So that is in Magnolia. And I really have enjoyed doing that for about 10 years as well. All right, welcome in. Come on in. Good to see you. All right, so we're going to start with skulls and track identification. So we're going to start with mammals. And before we get into our skulls, we're going to start with a little bit more basic. And then after skulls and tracks, we're going to take a little bit of break, and then we're going to do interpretive guiding. So we're going to start with basic, if you don't think I'm patronizing you guys, we're going to start with basic identification of some vocabulary, just to make sure we're all on the same page. So talking about adaptations, okay, all of these animals, first of all, I'm talking about just native Texas wildlife today. So all of the adaptations, all of the things that help these guys survive are going to be things that are focused on animals that are native to Texas. Okay, so not necessarily the Australian weird ones. Okay, just to clarify. I will be focusing mostly on physical adaptations, not necessarily behavioral ones. So physical would be something that you can see, right? But, however, we can sometimes make assumptions about their behavior based on physical adaptations. So because an animal, we'll talk about it, but sometimes we make these assumptions automatically. So for example, if an animal like we see a kangaroo has very large feet, we just in our brains, we're like, I bet that animal can jump, right? Because an animal has a long tail, we're probably like, I bet that animal has good balance or something like that, right? So we make these assumptions already sometimes in our minds, but we're going to kind of link them a little bit better. We're going to make these just looking at their skulls, okay? Okay, we're on the same page here. Let's go back to high school biology and talk about our taxonomy. So kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Okay, did anybody learn, or does anybody remember a mnemonic phrase for our taxonomic orders?
King Philip came over for green spaghetti.
Green spaghetti?
Yeah. Or great spaghetti.
Yeah. For good steak? Okay, yeah. I learned King Philip came over for good spaghetti. Green spaghetti is very memorable. Interesting. Okay. And of course there's one greater than kingdom. Does anybody remember what that one is?
Domain.
Domain. Yeah, I just skip it because we're all, yeah, whatever. Living things. All right. Kingdom, Animalia. We are talking about chordata, which means things that have bones inside of their bodies, right? Vertebrate. Class, Mammalia. All of these animals we're talking about today are going to be within this class. To give you an example a little bit farther of things that just examples. Let's see how far I can get before you can guess what animal I'm talking about. Order Carnivora or Carnivora. Examples: otters and weasels, cats, dog-like animals, including dogs, bears, raccoons, hyenas, Ursidae. Okay, genus. I'm going to give you the genus before I show you the picture here. The genus is, let's see if I remember, Arctos. Okay, and I'm sorry, yeah, Arctos would be polar bear. If it's Ursus, it's either brown bear, polar bear, or black bear. So those are all North American bears. Species versus Arctos would be polar bear. Ursus, which one did I do? Hold on, let me remember. Ursus americana, black bear. Ursus Arctos would be polar bear. Ursus,
It's like terrible.
okay, terrible, yeah, it would be brown bear, right? Very good. So those are all of our bears. And fun fact about our bears, I don't think I just don't remember. So fun fact about our bears, I'm just gonna side note here. So I like rabbit trails. So Ursus is Latin for bear. Arctos is Greek for bear. The Arctic is where bears live, right? And the Arctic is where you can see the constellation Ursidae or Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. Big Dipper and Little Dipper, right? So the Arctic is named after where you can see the big bear and the little bear. Antarctic is where you can't see the big bear and the little bear. So we have literal places where you can see bears and you can't see bears. Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Ooh, and I'm wrong here. I don't know who made this. That's embarrassing. All right. It's embarrassing for earlier me. Okay, so let's move on to our animals we have here. First, let's talk about some very obvious characteristics. So our antlers and horns. Left or right, which ones have antlers?
Left.
On the left. So what are the difference between antlers and horns? Horns are permanent. What else?
Horns are made out of carrots and antlers are bone.
Good. Horns are made out of keratin on the outside. Antlers are made out of solid bone. So if you go to the pet store and you find antlers like this, don't give your dog antlers. I don't know if you'll sell them. They're really bad for your dog's teeth. They are solid on the inside. And they can sell them like this because what happens to antlers most animals every year? They fall off, right? Horns don't fall off. There is an exception kind of to an animal. So we have a kind of antelope-ish animal here in Texas, a very weird prehistoric kind of animal here in West Texas. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Pronghorn, antelope.
They move in giraffes.
They are kind of in their own little weird category. They're kind of horns and they are, yeah, they're very weird. So anyway, they are keratin on the outside. They do fall off. So these antlers, solid bone, they fall off every year. We're gonna kind of make a little assumption here based on physical characteristics compared to horns. So here's a horn from an aoudad, and just on the outside are keratin. On many animals with horns, the females and males can both grow horns. On animals with antlers, for the most part, it's only the males that grow antlers. There's one exception. What type of deer where the males and females grow antlers? Reindeer. Now, usually in many species of deer, and so in our reindeer, the males will drop their antlers in kind of early winter, November-ish. The females don't drop their antlers until often early spring. So when we see depictions of Santa's reindeer and they have antlers, those have to be female. Yay. Girl power. So putting these kinds of clues together, if only the males grow antlers, so I move our white over here. Only the males have antlers, and they fall off every year. That means that they're probably not a great adaptation for protection. Oftentimes when I ask the kids, why would they have antlers? They're like, well, they're to fight, like to protect themselves. Well, then how would the females protect themselves? And how would they protect themselves during the time of year when they don't have antlers? Helpless. Why would they have antlers then?
Mating.
For mating. So this is an example of kind of a dimorphic type of characteristic where males and females look different. It's a sexual dimorphism, right? You see this a lot in animals where like they need them for fighting, right? Where they need them where the males kind of are proving themselves to the females, right? So good dimorphic characteristic. We'll see something else in a little bit that's another kind of good example of that. Talk about that again. Okay.
Are horns also always single pronged and antlers always multi-pronged?
The ones I'm picturing, yeah, I'm sure I'm wrong. There's always exceptions to the rules. Pronghorns have multiple. Because that's why they're pronghorn.
Oh, longhorns have multiples.
No, longhorn have one, pronghorn,
Pronghorns.
pronghorn, but those are the weird ones. Those are the exceptions to
Okay.
all of the rules.
Okay.
Anybody think of anything else? Am I missing something? All the ones with horns I'm thinking of are single,
Okay.
and all the ones I'm thinking of with antlers are multiple.
Except for young whitetail, like the pencil dogs.
Sure,
First year.
yeah, a first year's little stag might have one, but like as a species, no. I'm only thinking of antlers with multiple.
So is that a way to identify the difference?
Sure. I'm sure regularly, yeah. Okay, good. Let's talk about some characteristics that we can kind of see on more animals, more commonly across different species. Talking about eyes, first let's look at the size of them. So on this one, this is a female deer. So this is a doe, a deer, a female deer. And we have, first of all, the size of their eyes. I would say on a deer, when you say somebody is doe-eyed, you're saying their eyes are really big, right? And on something like this, so when their eyes are really big, it's a good example of something that's probably going to be more active when it's darker, right? That's a good adaptation for something that needs to be able to see in the dark. Not to say that all animals that are active at night or when it's dark are going to have big eyes, but those larger eyes can allow more light to enter, so it can allow them to see better in the dark when they have that. Think about owls, cats, opossums can be kind of that way. Their pupils are constantly dilated. They do have small beady eyes, so that larger pupil can help them to see better in the dark. They don't have great eyesight, but those kinds of adaptations can be more helpful, if that makes sense. So we don't necessarily see on a skull larger orbitals, but we can see more pieces of that. Does that make sense? On something like a skunk, bats, a lot of times they're going to have smaller eyes, not blind, of course, but those smaller eyes just because they don't use them as often. Okay. But again, it doesn't mean that they don't see, just that they're probably using something else. There's probably a better adaptation for them, a more important adaptation for them. Okay, so size. Let's look at the orientation of those eyes as well. Using a deer here. So looking straight at the deer, you see those eyes are pointing a little bit more to the side, oriented this way. So deer have what we call monocular vision, where their eyes are pointing a little bit more to the side. This helps them to see a little bit more around them. They have a wider field of vision versus our binocular vision. We can kind of test this if you want. You can, close one eye, just hold your hands out to the side, and harder to put your fingers together versus using both eyes at the same time. It's a lot easier. Put your fingers together. Thank you to two of you guys who did that with me. Yeah. Versus a predator. I'm going to show you guys kind of how I look at a skull like this. So the eye sockets, you look at the top of the skull, my owl here, top of the skull, there's kind of an upside down Y shape. This is the sagittal crest. And on some animals, it's a little more obvious than others. But where that Y shape ends, I'm just going to cover up everything behind that. And those are my eye sockets in the front. Okay. Those eyes pointing more forward, that's what is going to give us our binocular vision. So that gives us a little bit better depth perception, binocular vision. So we can, like predators are going to be able to catch their prey more easily, but we have narrower fields of vision. right? So there's advantages and disadvantages to each. Deer and prey, they do have a wide field of vision. They do have an overlapping field of vision at certain points. It's a little bit farther ahead of them, and it's a bit narrower, but they do have depth perception in a narrower field of vision. Okay. I use a rhyme to remember our eye placement here. Eyes to the side need to hide. Eyes to the front need to hunt. So our predators versus our prey. All right. Sense of smell. When I think of sense of smell and a good sense of smell, first I think of dogs. We use dogs to help us find things with their sense of smell. I'm not thinking of like pugs or bulldogs. We have like our German shepherds, right? Our labs, hunting dogs. So a long nose would be something proportionally where the end of the eye to the end of the mouth is about half the length of the skull. So this animal here, so half the length of the skull, so a very long nose. If we had a nose that was half the length of our skull, it'd be like out to here. So long nose, good sense of smell in general, right? And that's because it physically gives them more space, more surface area to have more receptors inside of that nasal cavity. Versus this one's a little bit smaller. This one, and I would say it's kind of like a medium sense of smell. It's 1, 2, 3, maybe like a third of the length of the nose. A cat would be a good example of something that has a very short nose. We have a very short nose. It's not to say that we don't have a sense of smell. We certainly use our sense of smell, right? If you smell the milk and it smells bad, you don't use it, right? When you make cheese out of it or whatever. So examples of the differences here. So that bobcat nose is like a quarter of the length of the skull. So just a very distinct difference. So just kind of to show you the difference, very interesting sidetrack here. We have maintained in those dogs that we use for scent dogs, we've maintained that very wild kind of the same shape of that skull. We have totally messed up in breeding those dogs for looks, just to make them look cute. Cats, we did not really domesticate. So cats have retained their skull shape for the most part and their wild characteristics. So can you tell which skull belongs to a domestic cat? So top row, we'll go 1, 2, 3, bottom row 4 or 5.
Probably 3.
Just hold up in your hand, let's see. Let me just take a 3, 1, 4, 5. 3. So this one's a bobcat. Mountain lion. Are you sticking with 3? The tiger.
Way up.
Lion. This one's a cat. They have very similar characteristics. Big eyes, flat nose. Talk about teeth here in a minute. Just the size is a big difference, right?
Adrian,
Yes.
we learned last week, 2 weeks ago, that snakes have a Jacobson's organ. Do mammals also have one? No.
Not that I'm aware. No, we don't. What do you have?
I just, talking about sense of smell,
Yeah.
it's a whole different anatomy.
Yeah. No, our sense of taste and sense of smell are related for sure, but not in the same way. Yeah, that's interesting to think about. All right, on some animals, particularly kind of in the order Carnivora, we might see auditory bullae. So we take the top part of the skull, turn it over. We have on the back part here, these bulbs. And on some animals, it can be more obvious than others, but they are on the side, you can definitely tell. These are where they're basically your ear canal. And I said, our skulls are weird shaped. We're not gonna be able to see them on a human skull. But on our dogs, on Mephitis, on bears, on cats, a lot of times we'll see these pretty obviously. So these auditory bullae will house some of their inner ear organs. If you were to see, if you saw an animal, and let's say you saw a donkey or a rabbit, and you're like, I bet that animal has really good hearing. What characteristic are you probably looking at that makes you go, that animal has probably pretty good hearing?
Large ears.
Big ears, right? Okay. Big auditory bullae will probably house very large inner ear organs. So the bigger their auditory bullae are, the better they can hear. The bigger their ears are, the better they can hear. Usually those two things will complement each other, and the larger their auditory bullae are, the bigger their ears will be. So when I see big auditory bullae, I'm going to assume I'm going to look for an animal that will have larger ears. And I say this, I'm making this connection because what happens a lot of times, people will send me a picture of a skull and say, what is this? I say, don't just send me one picture, send me multiple angles and put your hand in it for reference so I can get a size reference, right? But give me that angle so I can see the auditory bullae if I can see them. That gives me a good hint. It's just another little clue. So for reference, for like a skunk, look at that little big skunk, isn't it cute? So on our skunk, we can't really see the ears. They have little tiny, little squeaky little teddy bear ears. And their auditory bullae are very flat and not very round. They're kind of oblong. They don't have great large auditory bullae the same way the coyote would or like bobcat. Okay. Question so far where I'm jumping here and there. Cool. Teeth. We might be a little more familiar with teeth. There are a couple of things I want to pause at here and there. I'm going to start with our molars. And a couple things I want to point out here. So this is our deer again, starting in the back of our mouth. We're looking at the shape of them. And a lot of times people say if they have flat teeth, they eat plants. And this then confuses us when we see teeth that look like this, where you put your hands on it and it's very pointy feeling. So what I want you to do instead, and think about it instead, is you feel your molars with your tongue. Feel that little dip in the middle where Cheetos get stuck. The little canoe shape is what we're looking for. So that, not flat necessarily, it's a dip in the middle. And if you ever watch a goat eat or any real herbivore eat, the way we chew, our jaws can move from side to side. And that's because plants are really difficult to digest, right? So we have to crush up those plants into smaller pieces in order to help as much as possible our bodies digest it. And I think about our teeth a lot of times as a reflection of our digestive system. A lot of times our plant eaters are going to have a lot more teeth than our carnivores, especially true carnivores, which we'll look at next. So our plant eaters are going to have a lot more teeth. We're going to spend a lot more time chewing. Think about our ruminant animals, cattle, sheep, camels. They don't just chew it once. They actually swallow it. It goes into our ruminant chamber, and they regurgitate it, and they chew it again before we're swallowing it. It goes into a separate chamber, and it goes into different chambers entirely before going through very, very long digestive systems, because it takes a long time to break that stuff down, right? Versus a carnivore, protein from animals is broken down very easily and turned into energy more quickly, right? So, and it leaves more space in their bodies in a carnivore for organs that will help them to catch their prey more easily. So if you've ever lifted up a cat by the middle and they look like they're this big and then they slink into this big long slinky animal, right? So that all that space in their body cavity in the cat is left for big lungs, large heart, so that they can sprint really fast to catch their prey, instead of taking up all that space with a long, large intestine or small intestine to break down plants. That makes sense? Cool. So, new shape molars, plant eating, even if only some of those molars have that shape, they can eat some plants at least. I'm thinking of, if anybody has a dog at home, give your dog some of broccoli, carrots, pumpkin, love that stuff. They can digest that. You try to give your cat plant matter, even if they physically chew it and swallow it, it's not going to get it digested. So here's a bobcat, right? We got 3 molars back there. And if you ever watch a cat chew, up and down, doesn't have that same side to side motion, right? Just sawing that meat. And those molars are like little mountain peaks. No canoe shape. All right, incisors. Oftentimes, a lot of these animals, they're gonna be like ours, they're nothing special. They're a lot of times a little tiny, comb shaped, maybe you might call them. And sometimes we use them like a comb for grooming themselves, or picking up their little kittens and carrying them around, right? They're not necessarily for chewing, or they're not purposeful for eating a whole lot. However, there are exceptions. There are some animals with some very, very distinct orange large molars. There's this group of mammals, rodents, rodentia. They're going to have very large orange teeth. So name some rodents for me.
Beaver.
Beavers.
Squirrel.
Squirrel.
Rat.
Rats. Nutria.
Mole.
Moles and voles are actually separate. Yeah, you'd think they would be. They do have those large teeth. Little different though. Thank you for not saying raccoon. Thank you for not saying opossum. Much appreciated. Capybara, right? That's what. There's something else. There's some surprising ones sometimes. Mouse. Anyway, so this one is a nutria, and nutria are not native, of course. This one is obviously, I think, a little disrepair, but I like it because I'm going to show my little owl here so y'all can see. So the tooth, because it is falling apart, you can see how long this tooth is. I can't pull it out at this point. It's kind of stuck. But the teeth on a rodent, the incisors are constantly growing. They just never stop. They just keep going. And that is a great adaptation. When you think about something like a beaver, where you're eating trees, right? You have to eat a tree. You're going to need some pretty strong teeth. So not only should they just keep growing and replacing themselves, but they need to be very hard. So the orange on the outside, the front part of those incisors, notice it's not orange on the back of the incisor, but on the front part, it's actually iron growing on the front of their teeth. So that makes it nice and strong so that they can chop down trees. So as they chew, and the outside is that hard part, the back side is the soft dentin. As they chew, it just chiseled it into a very sharp point. Squirrels, right? Same kind of deal. Now notice they are missing, they have this nice big hole here in between the incisors and the molars. So some animals are going to have canine teeth, talk about next, and some animals do not. So those are kind of our big three. Oh, hello. One way to tell, before I move on to canines, one way to tell between a beaver. Wait, this is embarrassing. A beaver and a nutria is nutria, like this guy, has a hole here. If you ever find a skull like this near a creek or something, the nutria has a hole next to its eye, whereas the beaver does not. So one is a cool find and one is a I'm glad it's dead find. One cool thing, one little neat kind of aside here. Notice the placement of the eyes. Notice they're not really on the side or on the front, but they're kind of on the top. Beavers have some cool little adaptations. They can, their eyes are up there so they can swim with their little eyes out while their, bodies are underneath. They can also, this little flap of our ears, they can close their ears without using their fingers. They also they have a split lip. They can close that lip behind their incisors so they can chew underwater without getting water in their mouth. And they are rodents, prairie dogs. Prairie dogs are rodents too. So they can, one really weird characteristic of a lot of rodents is they have vocalizations. And so they chit chat with each other, little squeaky chit chats. And it is so cute. Porcupines is another one. Have you ever seen Teddy the porcupine? You should YouTube Teddy the porcupine. He's very chatty and he loves pumpkins. And they have big teeth like this. So cute. All right. We got some rabbits too, because rabbits can be kind of confusing. They look like rodents, just like moles and moles, but lagomorphs, rodents, rabbits and hares are in their own kind of separate category. And you can tell the difference if you find a skull that looks like kind of a rodent-ish, but doesn't have the iron on the front of their teeth. These rabbits have in the back, you can kind of see here, behind the front set of incisors, there's another set of teeth growing there. And it's not like those teeth will replace the front teeth. They're always there. And I think of them kind of like herb scissors. You know how sometimes you see scissors with two blades next to each other or multiple blades? I think of them kind of like that, where they just work together there. That's what they eat. So that helps. Little bud. We got cottontails, we got swamp rabbits as well. Swamp rabbits are a little bit larger than the cottontails. All right, canine teeth. Now we get to canine teeth. So canine teeth can be found on predators, right? Top and bottom, hook-shaped, usually to catch our prey. Unless you have hands, right? No one's long canine teeth, use our hands. Or other methods of trapping, etc. But on predators, two sets, two on top, two on bottom. We do, however, see canine teeth on animals that are not predators. Can you give an example of an animal that has canine teeth that's not a predator?
Horses.
Good, horses. So why would a horse, though, need canine teeth?
They fight with each other.
They fight with each other. Very good. So just like deer, it is a dimorphic characteristic. So typically, only the males will grow canine teeth, and they're in wild horses. They are larger. They grow bigger than in domestic horses. And yeah, they use them to fight each other. Yeah.
You mentioned that cats cannot digest vegetable matter, but dogs can. Does that mean canines are omnivores?
Canines are dogs are omnivorous.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In the wild, are they?
Yeah, oh
What
yeah,
do
for sure.
they eat in the wild? Berries?
Yeah, yeah. It depends on the type of dog it is. So like foxes are much more omnivorous than like wolves. But yeah, for sure.
Interesting, I did not know that.
Some dogs are, some types of canines are much more carnivorous than others. Some of them are obligate, so like a cat is an obligate carnivore, has to only eat meat. A coyote is a carnivore by choice. They will try to eat meat as much as possible, but if available, they'll eat plants to supplement the meat. That makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah. So another good example of a predator or prey animal that has canine teeth is an elephant, hippo, it's canine teeth, and something like this. You want to guess what this is? This is a native Texas animal. Javelina. Very good. But I know that it's a prey animal. Why? Eyes on the sauce. Very good. So they use their teeth use their canine teeth to root around in the ground. They also use them horrifyingly to communicate with each other. It sounds like nails on a chalkboard. They squeak against each other. Same thing with our non-native. What are these? Pigs, non-native hogs, feral hogs. Yeah, much larger, but similar. A javelina is not a pig, but a peccary. Here, they look very similar though. Somewhat. Okay. Cool. So still using all those clues. You see canine teeth, don't just assume it's a predator, and look at all those clues. All right. I have one. Let's get that now. I used to have fox skulls. I don't anymore. But one cool way to look at a gray fox versus a red fox, I have, if you look at, so we talked about the sagittal crest earlier. Going back to our taxonomy, this is just, you don't have to remember this ever again in the rest of your life, but if you're interested, if you're interested like I am in cool little facts. So both gray fox and red fox are native here to North America. Our gray fox, the genus is Eurasian, and the red fox is Vulpes. Look at the sagittal crest here. The gray fox sagittal crest is U-shaped, and the red fox sagittal crest is V-shaped, like Vulpes. Eurasian, Vulpes. That's very nice of them to do that. All right. Okay, quiz time. So I have a skull here, and this animal has smallish eyes, a long nose, canine teeth, and you can't tell because its mouth is closed, but if I were to open the mouth, you can tell that this animal does eat some plants. It does have a lot of molars, so that's very helpful. I am missing one very important clue for this animal. And this is very important. I did mention it briefly earlier, and this is something that I have had to wag my finger at a lot of people. They send me pictures. You have to send me a sense of scale. And I can't believe I had to teach my dad to do this multiple times because he sent me a picture of something. We're talking about this guy again. He sent me a picture of something, and it looked very similar to this. And he sent me a picture of it on a table like this. Cool. Yeah, sure. Maybe it's kind of like a raccoonish. I had no idea how big it was. All right. He did send me, to give him some credit, he sent me a picture like this and like this. Thank you so much. But please send me a picture with your hand in it or something for scale. So then the next picture I got was this. Okay, well, that's not a raccoon. This is a black bear. So that is important. So to give you a sense of scale for what this animal is, this is how big this animal is. Anybody want to guess? This is a very common wild animal. This is something that a lot of people send me and ask me what it is. And this is something that I know what it is, even if you send me a quarter of this animal's jaw. It's an opossum.
Oh.
And I know that it is an opossum if you tell me, if you give me a quarter of its jaw, because opossums have 50 teeth, more than any other land mammal in North America. So I can count 1/4 of its jaw and figure out, do some math, and figure out how many teeth the rest of it will have. And I know what it is. There, pass that around if you want. Some of these, the ones with blue tape on the tags, these are bone clones. They're not real. The other ones that are real, I'm gonna keep up here. Y'all can come and look at them in a little bit. All right, so our opossum. Let me give too much away earlier. I didn't want to ruin my surprise. Opossums, and I am saying opossum because possums live in Australia and are not native here. Opossums, and the word opossum comes from an Algonquin word, which means white face. And the word possum was derived from opossum. I'll pass that around.
Is this an opossum?
That's an opossum. So opossums are, like possums, marsupials, and they can have, on average, up to 13 babies because they have, on average, 13 nipples. When they have their babies, they will lick a little path to their pouch, and their little babies are born about the size of a jelly bean, and they will find their way to the pouch, and then they will attach themselves to a nipple. And the first ones that make it there survive. If there are any left over that don't make it, are left over, there are no nipples left. Sorry, little jelly bean. No room left in the inn. Once they are attached, they're like little grapes. They are stuck there for about 2 months of their first life, first part of their life. And the milk will drip down their stomach. So they are very particular in the way that they're rehabbed. So if you see an opossum get hit on the side of the road, particularly in springtime, if you would stop and check to see if that's a mama opossum, if she's got little babies in her tummy, they cannot get out to take care of themselves. They cannot let go. You'll have to pluck them. You'll have to take them out and bring them to a rehab center. Otherwise, they will have the sour milk continuing to drip down into their stomach. So, yes. After a couple months, they will be able to let go, and then they'll climb out onto her back, where they'll learn how to be an opossum. She'll walk around and teach them where to find food, how to build a nest, how to climb trees, that kind of thing. If their hands get damaged by frost, or their tail gets damaged, if they cannot climb, they cannot survive. So that's a very important adaptation for them. They have a prehensile tail. However, they cannot, like in Bambi, they cannot actually hang from it. They're way too heavy for that. They will live on average about 2 years. That's a very old opossum in the wild. That's a geriatric opossum. They were very ancient. They have been around for a very long time. They do eat cockroaches and mice, and they can eat venomous snakes, including copperheads. And if they get bit by that copperhead, they can get bit like 300 times without being affected by the venom.
Wow.
That's pretty cool, right? They are not affected by rabies, but in the same way that other mammals are, because their body temperature is a bit lower. So they do not carry the same zoonotic diseases that a lot of animals do. I know I oftentimes get people who own horses. I own horses. It's totally fine. I understand we do not like them being around because they can carry a disease or it's a parasite. However, cats can also carry the same parasite. Basically, don't have dead things hanging around and you'll be fine. Just if you have something dead on your property, get rid of it. That's how that gets passed on. Opossums are carrion eaters. They will eat that too. Yeah, they're really wonderful little animals to have around, and we love them. However, one of their defenses, of course, is to play dead, and that's not a voluntary response. It's like fainting. They will pass out for up to like 3 hours. So if you think an opossum is dead, it may not be. They really can play it up. They can emit a very stinky smell, kind of like a must smell. Their heart rate can slow down. They can become very convincingly dead. And you always hear people say, "I threw the opossum away," and then hours later I come back and my trash can is rattling around. So be very sure that the opossum is not alive anymore for you to toss it. Or just move it to a safe spot. That way it's fine if it wakes up.
I read that they eat a lot of ticks.
They can eat ticks. It's not their main source of food, but I have seen game camera footage of them hanging on to a deer, eating the ticks, the engorged ticks off of deer. And the deer just like let them do that sometimes. So that's neat. They are immune to Lyme disease and they'll just eat the ticks, that carry Lyme disease. So that's neat. That's nice. Yeah. Any questions about opossums? Please ask.
Are they unaffected by, you're saying the copperhead venom? Is that also because of their body temperature? Or
I think that's something else. Yeah. There are a number of animals that are. I think that's just that they have adapted, evolved alongside of them for so long. Yeah.
Can you comment on their defense of hissing and looking really vicious when they actually aren't vicious at all?
I think they just know that they have so many teeth that they can look vicious. They're not very likely to bite. From experience, the females are more snappy than the males. But that's all they got, really. They're like cats if you grab them by the scruff. That's
Throw a towel over them, they're fine.
yeah, that's pretty much it. That they're not fast. They're not feisty. I mean, that's all they got. Yeah, and they've got cute little fingerless gloves. They have an opposable thumb on their back foot. Have I convinced y'all that the opossum is your favorite animal? Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, we can finally move on. Thank you. All right. This is the second most common skull that people will send me pictures of and say, "What the heck is this? I found it in my backyard on the trail that I was walking. What is it?" It is this big. It is found everywhere. It has very medium kind of characteristics of everything. Medium eyes, they're facing forward, so this is kind of a predator. Medium nose, it is an omnivore. Raccoon, for sure, yeah. Procyon lotor. So this is they do not, contrary to popular belief, they do not have opposable thumbs. So they cannot go like this with their little hands. Oh, sorry, so we'll go ahead. We'll just set this here for you.
Sorry, not fast enough.
You're good. You're good. I'm just whenever you're ready. So they are, and they're smart, but they're not as smart as we give them credit for. Honestly, they are a smash it till it does what I want it to do kind of a species. And So if you ever do make it out to Cleve, you'll see that our trash cans have very heavy lids. And we are just constantly trying to keep up with how they keep up with us, in getting into our trash. I first started at Heartwood in 2023, and we just had trash cans, like normal trash cans with the dome swingy lid. And every single day I showed up to work and had to pick up trash. And so we very quickly got our woodworkers to make a heavy box with a lid, and our raccoons figured out, I don't know, we don't have game cameras out there for our trash cans, but I don't know if they were standing on each other's shoulders and lifting it, but we had to make them heavier. And then, so we made them heavier. And then they have little wooden slats, and we thought, they're not gonna get in there. And then before we knew it, within a couple months, they were putting their little hands in there and grabbing the trash bag and going like this, and just pulling the trash bag until the trash just fell out. And then it was another mess. And so now we have mesh on the sides to keep them from, and it's only a matter of, and we're just constantly keeping up. But we can only make it so heavy and so, so much so that people can still get in without raccoons getting in. So the whole deal.
We have seatbelt buckles on our trash cans, that's for.
That's smart.
Keeps the legs closed.
Love it. That's smart. They are a riverine species. So a lot of times people think that they're washing their food when they are putting their food in water. It's much more likely that they're softening it because they have, you've ever felt, I don't know if you guys have ever felt raccoon hands, but they're sticky. And they're very tactile, and they just like to feel their food. And so that's what they're doing. They're just feeling it. If you've never seen a video of the raccoons in the zoo where they give the raccoons cotton candy, and they had to figure out that when you dip the cotton candy in water and it dissolves, that's hilarious. And the raccoons are like, they figured it out very quickly though that you can't do that. Okay, if you find, does anybody have a question?
I did have a question.
Yeah.
Can you speak on their lack of salivary glands? Do you know about that? That's another reason they use water. They don't have salivary glands to digest their food, so they use the water to break it down.
Cool. Neat. I don't know about anybody else who has that. Do you know of any other animals that do that?
I don't, but I think one of the scientific names in its name kind of translates to that. I don't know, they're gonna find it. The salivary gland thing is true.
Cool. Okay, if you find a skull and you would like to preserve it, here are a couple of ways. I had to add this because people kept asking about it. I don't know if y'all are not interested, this is for us to look away. If you would like to preserve a skull, there are a couple of different ways to do it. You have domestic beetles, or if you just put the skull outside, domestic beetle, they might find it. They can pick the stuff clean pretty easily. Make sure you wear gloves when handling the skulls. Do not leave it out for too long. The sun will bleach and the skull becomes very brittle very quickly. You can boil the skull either just in water. You can also add hydrogen peroxide, 5 to 10% solution of peroxide, and that will whiten it a little bit, and it can clean it pretty good. I'm not missing anything.
That steps or those different ways to do it?
Steps. Another way you can do it, I don't remember if I put it in here, is find a fire ant pile and just dig a little hole, put it in there, let them take care of it. You do have to deal with the fire ants when pulling it back out. But if you're willing, depends on how much you want the skull. Photographing skulls. You want to send them to me? I'm going to give you my email in a little bit. Multiple angles, teeth, sense of scale, please. Okay. Cool. We're gonna skip quiz time, we already did that. Actually, I do have another one that somebody gave me recently, just for funsies. This one is a little bit different because it doesn't have incisors. And it's not a herbivore, omnivore, or carnivore. It's an armadillo. So it's not herbivore, carnivore, or omnivore. What is it? Insectivore. And it's only got 2 little teeth left. But the teeth on something like this, they're little nubby teeth. And they're only in the back. And armadillos are one of their closest relatives is an anteater. Anteaters don't have any teeth, and they use their tongue to crush insects. And armadillos have kind of a similar-ish setup in their mouth, very long, tubular kind of mouth. And their teeth are really weird too. That's just passing their head. And I have a little bit of the tail too. Okay. I want to take just a quick little break before we talk about tracks. So about 5 minutes. So 9:50. Yeah.
Hi, how are you? Rowan has a tournament today. Again, it's his last tournament. So I'm gonna leave a little early, if that's cool. Yeah. I just wanted to let you know in case I have to get up in the middle of whatever. But yeah, what time? Maybe 10:30, 10:45, something like that. Okay. Sounds good. So yeah, I don't want to miss. I'm missing some of his morning games, but he has 2. Very cool. He got to he came to the herb session and we hiked around and he helped choose the snake. Like he found the right size for the cottonmouth that she caught and he got to touch it and everything. So that's awesome. Yeah, very good. So he's been messing with me this time. I think he's enjoying it. Yeah. That's awesome.
Good. Of course.
I have a Mustang that has like
When did you get your Mustang?
I got them off of Facebook. Somebody had them that had like a tiny lot in Houston, so I got him. I'm gonna be eligible to adopt him too. So I had him back here. But he's got enormous canine. It's not a great picture, but that was like, oh my god. Very little nubbins.
Yeah.
Do you have Mustangs too?
No, I had a quarter horse. My he just passed away last year.
I mean, he's a horse too. He's a great horse. We like about 24 to 27, somewhere in there. He's an old man. Got his, he's had hematoma, blind in one eye, but he's a good guy.
Yeah. I had him.
Oh my god. First, too. Yeah.
My best friend.
I like him. He's pretty.
Yeah.
Very personal. It's like. I can send you a place Oklahoma has called Valley. That's a Mustang place to make
I'll send you all the information, that's fine.
My dog was passed and I'm not ready for. I'm not ready for another animal at the moment, but yeah, I think a horse would, another horse would be.
That's really good, they're really sort of cute. Also, they can just. They'll specify what's with that. Pick by your topic. It's all. Yeah, I got Wednesday, like, this is.
Public events where I have a full set of birds like on the table. Coyote, bobcat, skunk, everything and a opossum. And I had an adult come with the kids and the adults keep saying like, oh, and they just, oh, this is so cool. And I get to the opossum and like, what is this? And I say, opossum, they go, ew. And they say, ew.
It's amazing.
You were fine with it until I said what it was.
Yeah.
And then I had a hot. When you read the house, that's a why is it pretty hot. I got raccoons last night.
Yeah.
They have to look at the. It's one of forget what the one the other day. Oh, there was a spoil discussion I was having with my boss. But about 5 minutes. Yeah, they. So we built a fence. We've avoided a fence for 20 years. So I built my fence as metal. And it has no spikes on top because it's deer. We actually have neighbors. But the other thing is the guy they must have. That's like a raise. So it has the bottom and the top, and it has the iron bars. But the bottom, I had to leave at least 6 inches between.
That's a good.
46. And everything is such a good idea. Deer out. And so
That's an awesome.
so our cameras have animals going back and
idea.
forth.
I
And
love
then
that.
the tortoise because they about the fence. And I think it's in your yard. It's like.
That's a great idea.
So I have seen I've seen turtles. I had, I think it was last year or the year before, I had somebody, my next door neighbor, I happened to stop, I was like, oh, is that a turtle caught? And it was already dead. I was like, how long ago? Videos. Yeah.
But no, we have we can see in our wildlife path, we're still on.
That's a great idea.
With the lightning, like, oh, it's I had no idea. Horribly cold. I had no idea it looked like that. I'm like, oh, it's all in my yard. Because I've been leaving the leaf litter and stuff.
And it takes a couple of years sometimes for that.
Yeah, years ago. Well, I know that full cycle because we got we bought a chipper. Still just my pile.
That's so exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Here we are in suburbia. They got the chipper.
Tough way back there.
The fun things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Like, I gotta get out of here.
Hello.
Sorry, I just wanted to say I was.
No worries. I have to look
like-
that up and I have to look up Procyon Wilford too. I was like, I swear. She's like, I swear I heard their name before, like what that means, and I have to look up what that means.
Yeah.
Dog washer. Yeah, like it does have something to do with
Yeah. Well, I learned that from a wildlife biology professor. So that's like so fast. That's really sad.
Thank you. Yes.
We have like oh, yeah. And so he's coming across the tree. Towards the lake and his slow. And then all of a sudden it was like, as soon as it noticed me. And then boom, like in the water, gone. I'm like, whoa, that's it.
Yeah, so. Looks like we can. Get that.
All right. Y'all ready?
That's cool, yeah.
I had to fix my mistake from whenever I made this 10 years ago or whatever. Okay.
Okay. Animal tracks and signs. So we will be looking at when and where to find animal signs. So when you're outside, what to look for, where to go, common animal tracks and some scat, how to look for animals, and a few other signs, animals and weather. Okay, word of the day, ecotone, a region of transition between two biological communities. So in this picture, for example, we have a forest community, we have a prairie community. The ecotone is what's right in the middle here, right? Sorry, Virginia, did I share correctly?
No,
Is it good? Okay.
Just gonna check back here.
Okay, please do. So, in the middle, we have what's more likely to be the area where more wildlife can be found, right? Because we have our forest animals who are going to venture out into an area where there will be more food, right? So our deer will find more grass in our ecotone, in our more prairie-ish area, but they'll stay close to safety. Our prairie animals may venture closer to our safety area while remaining where their homes may be, right, in our prairie area. So, ecotone. But it may also include our ecotones of times. So day versus night, our ecotones will be first thing in the morning and later in the evening, dawn and dusk. Think about birds, right? If you're a birder, you know dawn and dusk is going to be the most active times of day. Same thing with most animals, especially here in Texas when it gets really hot. You're not going to want to be right out in the middle of the day, but also it's going to be difficult if you're an animal that needs light to hunt or do anything right in the middle of the night. So dawn and dusk is going to be your time to do anything. Spring and autumn are also ecotones. Those are also great migration times. So we're going to see a lot more activity during those times. Okay, so ecotones, when and where to find animals. Look for those. After rain or snow, near water, trail crossings, there's going to be great places to find tracks. Also, places where animals will go more often. So you'll find crossings, you'll find animals will try to mark their territory more often. Okay, talking about types of footprints, gaits, as well as looking at the structure of their tracks. Okay, we can, in general, categorize footprints into 4 types of prints. Hooves. So in this area, you're looking for more likely 2 types of footprints, deer and hogs. 4 toes front and hind. That's going to be our dogs, cats, and rabbits. 5 toes front and hind. Skunks, opossums, raccoons, and beavers. And this leaves 4 toes front, 5 toes hind. That's most other rodents, so besides beavers, right? Okay. So you guys right, so I'll leave this up here. We'll talk about most of each of these and the way that they track and the individual toe arrangement and that kind of thing as well. Okay. Okay, looking at gaits and tracking styles. We have a couple of animals here. I want to point out different walking in registers, what I'm going to call it here. So we have 2 animals here that walk what we call in register. So cats and gray fox are an example of animals that walk in register. So that means that their back foot lands exactly where their front foot was. And the reason for this is because these animals climb trees. Gray fox is kind of a weird one because it's a type of dog. And in general, dogs don't climb trees, but gray foxes are an exception to that. We'll come back to this. So in this case, we see what looks like one front foot and one hind foot, right? It just looks like they're walking like this and without their front feet. Whereas with deer, we have clearly front feet and hind feet. And same thing when we have our coyote, we have clearly front feet and hind feet, except they're, unlike the deer, a little bit, it's going to be a little bit more overlapping, their front and hind feet. Maybe because they're shorter, I guess, but their back foot is going to land just a little bit in front of their front foot. And this is specifically at the walk. Okay. And the gait of a tree dweller versus a ground dweller, this is where you guys get to laugh at me a little bit. So a tree dweller, think about the way that a squirrel moves and needs to move when you are on a tree branch, right? And you are thinking about the safety of maneuvering from one place to another. You want to make sure that wherever you land is going to be safe. So you don't want to be like a rabbit where your back feet land in front of your front feet necessarily. You're going to kind of land at the same, your back feet will land next to your front feet. So your front feet are going to kind of land at the same time next to. Whereas with the rabbit, our front feet are diagonal, and it's more of a galloping type of gait where the front feet are separate and they go 1, 2, and can't do it quite as well, but their back feet land farther forward than their front feet.
Shows how you do it again.
If you didn't record it, that's on you. All right. So dogs. When we talk about dogs, of course, we look at, you want your friend or? So we talk about dogs, of course, we have claw marks. And that's because they have, for the most part, non-retractable claws. Gray foxes are our weird ones. They have semi-retractable claws. That's what helps them to climb trees. In cats, cats have fully retractable claws. There's a weird exception for cats. They may know a cat that has semi-retractable claws.
Cheetah.
Cheetah. Yeah, cheetahs as adults don't climb trees. Weird how that's an opposite. And cheetahs use their semi-retractable claws as cleats to run fast. But if you've ever been to a zoo or someplace where you see cheetahs don't have covering over the top, and you're like, don't cats climb? Can't that cat climb out of here? Don't worry, it's not gonna climb out. The cheetahs don't climb. Okay, so our gray fox, our coyote, generally dogs are not only going to have our claw marks, we also, in general, are going to have our toes are going to be more elongated, more oval shaped, and the paw pad will be kind of a mound shape in a way. So just look at this, notice the difference between this, hold on, come back, and the clear kind of M of a cat, okay? The hump of the main paw of a cat. And the toe beans of cats are usually a little bit more round, that is the scientific term, toe beans, and no nail marks. Now, if it is very deep mud, if the cat is running really fast, there might be some nail marks. Maybe, but they do have nails, right? So don't always count on it. Just like if a dog has short nails, it's a domestic dog, and you keep your dog's nails really, clean and neat, you might not see dogs' nail marks. So you have to look at kind of everything put together. So the central pad is a really great way to tell the difference. Okay. Also, if you see a pad this big versus that small, like, it's a mountain lion, right? But don't be dramatic. You probably didn't see a mountain lion. Just in this area. Thank you. No, you did. Okay. Gaps. So in general, this is a good example of what you might find for canids. So for dogs, we're going to be looking for kind of a taper. And in general, coyotes in specific, their scat is right in the middle of everything. They like to leave it in the middle of crossings of trails. Foxes, you'll find it like right on the side of a trail, kind of randomly. And like we mentioned earlier, Martha had a good question, and here's a good example of this. Foxes are more omnivorous than coyotes. And you can see this here in their diet. Foxes will have a lot more plant matter visible. And depending on the time of year, you can tell exactly what they ate. If you know what plants are ripe, they will choose native plants to eat. So right now, you'll probably see dewberry seeds. Later in the summer, you'll see grapes, right? Getting into the fall, you'll see beautyberries, right? Coyotes, most of the time, unless you're in a drought and they're having a really hard time finding animal matter to eat, you'll probably see hair. Lots of hair. The drier it gets, a lot of times the more white it gets. That's the calcium from the bones that they've consumed. A lot of times drying there. So it can be a little bit different. It can look a little more crumbly as it dries. So just a few things to kind of keep in mind. Okay. Any other things? For cats are again obligate carnivores. They can only eat meat. So their scat will be overall very uniform. For bobcats, what I've typically seen is it looks like cat's poop, right? I don't see hair in it most of the time. Mountain lions, you might see more hair in it for whatever reason. I guess they just don't digest the hair as well, or they eat more of the hair or something. They're just less picky about the way that they eat it. Despite the fact that when you see a cash mountain lion meal, they're very surgical about how they eat their food. I don't know. But very large, very segmented scat. It's very obvious. It's not quite as big as a bear, obviously, but I'm not going to worry about bears. We're not going to get into that. Just talking about kind of this area. Okay. Raccoons. Raccoons, we talked about their hands a little bit, but they look very like people hands, but tiny. And their back feet, we see here the whole back foot. Most of the time, you're not going to see the whole back foot track. It looks like two of the same little hand a lot of times. You're always going to find it in rivers. It's very easy to see in little creeks and ponds. Most common little track to find. Their scat. This is the cleanest raccoon scat I feel like I've probably ever seen. It's messy. They'll leave it everywhere under your bird feeder, and they'll eat everything. So you'll find anything and everything in it. At Cledwoods, we'll find it on top of the bird feeder, under the bird feeder, next to the bird, everywhere. They eat everything. Opossums, again, they do have opposable thumb in the back. The hard thing about finding opossum tracks is they have this big, heavy tail behind them, and they will obscure their tracks when they drag their tail directly over their tracks. but they can look very similar to the raccoon tracks. However, they do have a little bit longer nails, so they often leave their little nail marks in their tracks. And their little tail drag. I didn't have an opossum scat because I don't find a lot of opossum scat. Opossum scat is distinctly smelly. It smells like cat poop, like your cat's poop. Raccoon and coyote and bobcat scat does not smell really. Squirrels, little tiny. You can see the comparison here. Little tiny. Little 4 fingers in the front, 5 in the back. Little tiny claws. Skunk. I've only found a couple of skunk tracks in my life. I don't know why they're so sneaky, honestly, and they're hard to find. But very distinct. Their claws are very long. They're very good diggers, so they're very distinct long claws. That very kind of thumby toe on the right side of their front paw may not always be super visible. Here, we're gonna look at our hogs next, but in comparison, our deer are very pointy, and they always point in the direction that they're going. When you're in deep mud or when they're running very fast, they might split into their hooves might live along a crestword, and their little dew claws might show up a little bit deeper back there. Versus our hogs. The hog claws might be a little bit, first of all, the dew claws are almost always present. Their hooves are a little bit more of a circle, more rounded, versus very pointy, elongated deer. And usually when you find hog footprints, you'll find a bunch of other evidence of hogs. They root everything up, they tear everything up around them. So you don't just find the footprints, you find torn up forest.
Which is the front and the back.
These are indistinguishable on these two. This is just an example of one versus flat. We'll make this as front and back. You usually just see this. I don't think I've ever seen this. Okay. Ooh, okay. What is number 1? Shout it out. Raccoon. What's number 2?
Deer.
Deer. Number 3.
Skunk.
Skunk. Good. Number 4. You don't have to be specific. Canines. A dog. Number 5. A cat. Number 6. A hog. Yeah, it's gonna look like this pretty much every time. That help, Martha?
Yes, it looked to me, sure, like one of the claws was like this and the other claw was like that.
Like a lobster claw.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if this was just like.
no, it's not.
It's gonna
It's
be
like the
this.
left side. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay. How to stock and post. Here, actually, before we do that, I have some examples to show you guys because I work at a nature center. Let's do it all up in here. It's very easy to get some good. First of all, our raccoons, again, very easy to, right? I guess I should do this before. Well, let's do the not messy one first. So our bobcat, right, segmented.
Oh.
Very rounded at the ends. Very uniform in color. One I didn't show is deer. I think we've all seen deer pellets. Now, I will say in the springtime, they will possibly be, they're about the size, right? Very round, distinct from rabbit pellets, and that rabbit pellets will be smaller, and rabbit pellets are also a little bit more ovate. In the springtime, because the grass is a little bit richer, a deer pellet may be wet. They may look like they have had a bad tummy ache, and just it might be a bit messy. So our coyote, it can be a little bit powdery and can be a little bit more crumbly as it dries. But again, taper at the end, right? But about the same size as our bobcat. And then hard to get the messy raccoon, but I can tell, so I'm gonna pick apart this a little bit. So my raccoon has had some of our little berries. Over here, some berries. And some seeds. Got some seeds in here. Seeds. And so it is very important to be like cautious when you find scat. Have you guys talked to Kelly Norrin? Talked to Kelly Norrin. So there is and I think they're still doing this project, the Coyote Scat Project. Do we know?
Yes.
Yeah, they're still doing that, right? So there's a Coyote Scat Project going on, the Urban Coyote Scat Project, and it's a great project. And they're trying to figure out what our coyotes are eating in the Houston area. And the best way to do that is not following coyotes around, but looking at their scat, collecting their scat. And so what you can do is you can find where coyotes are more likely to be found, and then go collect their scat. And then you send their scat samples in. So I have found a few samples. One sample I found at W.G. Jones had some hog hair in it. That's cool. So, one thing you can do is, if don't do this to the scat samples you're going to send in, but if you are trying to figure out, if you're getting really into it and you're like trying to figure out what kind of scat it is, and you're wanting to know a little bit more about the animal, there's a lot of information we can learn about these animals by the scat. You can tell their age, you can tell their size a lot of times, but yeah, a lot about their diet. I can see clearly in the raccoon's diet, but some of it you can just get like a little
Okay.
a little and it gives you a lot of good information about the animal. Just saying, don't do this. I brought brownies for everybody. And you guys can bake them into step brownies if you want.
I have a question. Do we have river otters here in this area? Okay.
I've actually seen a ton on, Lake Creek.
Okay. There are some at Lake Conroe.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought unfortunately a roadkill on 99, and I was like, that looks like a river otter, but I was driving and I didn't stop, and I was like, do we even have them here? And it made sense, because we were essentially right over the river.
So actually on the road, right in front of us, where they built that new school, yeah, found a roadkill one there. Usually.
Oh, really? Oh, my God.
Actually, pretty good.
Virginia, did you want to say something?
No, I have others on my other.
They're so cute. Okay. How to be, I did this scat thing with my junior master naturalist for the first time a few years ago. And no kidding, one of the kids watched me do this, and he looked at his mom and was like, I don't think this is for me. I had to convince him it was wrong. Okay, a few helpful tips on how to be an observer, how to be a good wildlife observer. Be an observer, not be observed. So how to do this? Avoid wearing solid colored clothing. So even if they're bright colors, that's okay. There are a lot of animals that don't mind that they're bright colors as long as they're in patterns, right? You're breaking up the line of sight. Hide in plain sight. So do not be, what's his name? This football player. Do not be sticking your head around something. Rather, set yourself as a part of something. So, put your back against a tree and become the tree, right? So become part of the tree so that you are not being, sticking out, right? Use a stopper's walk. So try your best not to, our footfalls are very obvious, right? Hit, slap, hit, slap. So instead, and if you're walking at a normal pace and at any point you try to stop immediately, we do this thing where we stomp when we try to stop, and we just ruin the whole thing. Everybody knows where you are, right? The chickadees start yelling at you, blue jays start screaming. So everybody has already alerted to your presence. So instead, if you are willing to go very slowly and you're not in a place where mosquitoes are attacking you, if you can, try to move in a way that at any point in time, you can halt your entire move. That's very helpful.
Does it help to go toe heel instead of?
You can go heel toe,
Okay,
but just roll.
okay.
Roll your foot. Hide your scent. You don't have to go by coyote and roll yourself around in or anything, but just be aware that if you are putting on sunscreen or mosquito spray, you are making yourself more obvious. So try to use non-smelly things. Use your senses. Sight. When you are, I think of this a lot of times when I'm birding. If you're looking and the light is behind the bird, it's going to be a lot harder to tell what the bird is, right? That sounds obvious, but until somebody said it out loud to me, I was like, oh yeah, and I'm going to be very conscious of the direction I'm looking. Sense of smell, you can be like a dog. If you literally wet your nose, you can accentuate your sense of smell. You want to go that far. Hearing. You can make your hearing better just a little bit by literally making your ear bigger. It does work. If you do, I can stay the same. I can give you the same amount. I'm going to stay the same pitch, stay the same volume. And if you put your hands behind your ears, I might sound a little bit louder because you're directing the sound more into your ears, right? So that does actually work. And it is just like making your ears bigger, like many animals do. A lot of ground is done. When I do this in prison, they're all gone immediately. Okay. Other animal signs to be watching out for. Trails and slides. So these are, deer trails, animal tracks, they leave behind their own little trails. Please stay on the trails meant for people, but if you want to post there and wait, that might be a place where a lot of animals are commonly moving. Scratches. Oh, a slide also is something, it may look like a small hole and you might have to bend at a certain angle to see it. But it is a place where like something like a rabbit might commonly go. That is another kind of trail. Scratches, whether it's from a predator or a deer scratching their the velvet off their antlers. And if you are in a park, you might ask the park naturalists or somebody at the education center if they know where something like this is as well. There are some places where they are familiar with the best places to look for those are. Fur feathers, these are good things to find, but be aware that if there are some, first of all, don't be picking stuff up. You don't have a good place to clean your hands. But also be aware that things like feathers can come with legal consequences if you are caught by a game warden with them, especially things like eagle feathers.
Even if they're on the ground?
Yep, you can't prove that you didn't pluck them out of the bird. Same thing with eggshells and nests. Good to find, good little clues to know where to look. With eggshells, just because you see an eggshell on the ground doesn't mean that if you look up, the nest will be there. The parents will often take the eggshell from the nest and bring it somewhere else so that it's not obviously right next to the nest. But they're fun to find.
And we can't take eggshells.
Unless you have the permits for it. Okay. Nests are cool to find and be sitting and watching for activity. This nest is not from a bird. And we know what this nest is. Squirrels. Squirrels are much fancier than we give them credit for. This is a summer home of a squirrel. They have summer homes and winter homes. They're very bougie. And this is called a dray. And then, of course, signs of no activity is also a sign. It means that you're the first person on the trail, maybe that morning, if you've ever been the person in front and gotten all the spider webs in the face. Another sign of no activity might be a dry turtle on the pond. Okay. Nobody's been walking around there recently, so you're the only one on the trail for the last 30 minutes or so, maybe. I think that's cute. And then animals and weather. We all have weather apps, but if you're like, I don't believe the weatherman, many of us don't, right? So I notice squirrels, for sure, do this thing where they are very urgent and a lot less worried about people when major weather storms are coming up, whether it's major freezes or major rainstorms, hurricanes coming in. I don't know how they know, but there will be many more squirrels out looking for food, and they are not as afraid when you walk by them. You can get a lot closer to them. And then if you are familiar with the spiders, maybe in your yard, and they will regularly set up a web and then take it down the next morning, and then the next day you see it much bigger. A storm must be coming in, because they will set up a bigger web right before a storm comes in to take advantage of the insects that will be more active before a storm. Cool. Okay, question, comment? Then we're gonna take another break, and then we'll do interpretive writing. Okay, I do have more brownies. Maybe one for me. We'll take about a 10-minute break at a time. I'll get ready for it.
So while we're taking a break, put key takeaways down on the board, that'd be awesome. And 10 minutes that, what?
10:35.
Anybody has EMS questions, they can put that.
Oh, yes. If you have any questions concerning our hours, it's verified at full amount.
My husband hikes a lot and he brought that. I just everyone's on. It was in the fall.
I need to. Just kidding.
Doing the theology class, like, I think it's like 2 months ago, and I didn't do the scale thing, but I was just taking random pictures of tracks and stuff. And is this a human foot or what is that?
Yeah,
It's a human foot?
yeah, just barefoot.
Just bare, okay. Yeah, 'cause it was really wide, and I was like, is it because the sand is kind of coming in?
Probably. Yeah, sand is a weird place for tracks.
And I was like, I don't know what that is, but
I don't know where.
that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
Well, you're also the junior master naturalist program.
Yeah.
Did you ask, or
I haven't,
So-
no.
we have kids that don't want to do it.
To do junior. Yeah, for sure.
So when does sign up start?
I can take your email. I can send you the form now.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll start in September or October. This next fall.
Once a month.
Once a month on Saturdays, 9 to 11 a.m. So try to make it as accessible and easy for everybody. And then, so we'll meet once a month, except for December. And then, January, February, March, April, May, and then we graduate with.
How many kids do you normally participate?
I do maximum 15.
So there's a limit.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There's a lot of homeschoolers who are interested in doing it, and it's been brought up a few times, but
Yeah,
I don't.
yeah, send them my way. I'd love
Well, yeah, if you have like an advertisement for it, post it in some forums, but only after my kid signs up. They're probably gonna like, wait till I.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
So,
Okay.
I'll send it to you first.
My brain always works with knowing why things are. The horns and the antler stuff. The reason so horns only can be one. They can't be branched because they're dead. No, the tissue is dead, and so it's extruded.
Yeah.
And so when it's being extruded, yeah, it's like a nail. So it can't
But it has
branch.
bone on the inside.
Yeah, but it can't branch itself. And so antlers,
Antlers are bone.
they're living tissue.
Yeah.
No, they're living tissue when they're formed. That's why they have the stuff on the out, like the whatever the outside part, the velvet. So they're living tissue, and so they can branch out and keep growing like different ways.
Yeah.
So they can, because the antlers are living, when they're formed, they can branch. But horns can't. That's why they grow one way, and they only grow one way.
That sounds very arbitrary to me.
It does, but that's the truth, because they're keratin,
Yeah.
and so they're extruded,
Yeah.
and it's a tissue that's just pushed out, like it's formed and it pushes, and then like our nails, and so like our nails are dead.
Yeah.
And so they're formed back there, and so that's why they're only one direction.
It'd be weird if we had like.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, they could fracture, I guess, but they don't branch like an antler does.
Yeah.
They're living.
Okay.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. So That's the only reason I remember it, but
And the antlers are the fastest growing tissue in the world. Like they can grow an inch a day.
really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get basically they give the animals osteoporosis because they leach it. They pull the calcium out of their bones to form the antler.
If they're injured, like if they're injured and it's like a bilateral injury. So like if they're injured on their right back leg, their left antler will show the injury. Like their left antler will not grow correctly that year, but it can grow fine the next year if if they heal fine. This is very weird. Yeah. Hi, Sherry.
I can't remember what this is.
It's an armadillo tail.
Okay, a tail, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
How about you?
Good.
Good to see you.
Thanks. So I haven't been out to volunteer for a few weeks, so.
Yeah, we're still there.
Be back.
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll see you then.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi.
Since we were talking about scat and tracking life, I just came back from Big Bend. I know you can't really see it in the photo, but I climbed this mountain. There's a little cave right there.
Oh, cool.
If you just look, piles and piles of scat.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
I think it was mountain lion then.
Yeah.
Oh, what's your opinion?
This? This?
Yeah.
How big is it?
Not that big.
What's it there?
That'd be interesting because I was pretty far out in the park.
Yeah.
So if it got that far out,
Black bear.
yeah.
Yeah. Because it's not tubular.
Yeah.
It's not super tubular. Yeah, and there are black bears out there.
Yeah. Like out in Terlingua.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And you go to the mountain across from it, I found the same thing. Okay, that pile of scat.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, time to go somewhere else.
That's cool.
Well, I don't find focus on my phone. When I went to, your park on Monday, I just went to fun my phone, so I think it's something like that.
Yeah.
So that's why. So unfortunately, I'll wait till my. It's hard to find. I got the spring ladies dresses. There are different ladies dresses. The ones that were there were spring ladies dresses. And then I also. Well, you're like, oh, but there are other ladies dresses. That is so the ladies dresses. It's only like one county, two counties. I have two now. So that might be more. The snowy orchid. Grows other places, not there. But but there's this one, and I think it's one of the ladies.
There are single counties. There's lady dresses.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Except when they do ones.
Yeah, it was like in the middle of
I
summer.
forgot that song.
I mean, I likely that these people. I got, it's just a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But I went there specifically for the snowy orchid. And I found it about 10 minutes in. And it's huge prairie at that. I may not like it. Actually, I was looking for a buttercup. A native buttercup, yeah. Well, didn't like.
I didn't get a whole lot, but, you know, we're out of, you know, the Texas Republic, the big thing that is starting.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah. So.
Do they look like the other? Okay.
Yeah.
Very
I think it's the biggest species.
That's very cool. That's, okay, now you live in part, yeah, I have to. I don't think I is that, on there. If you took it- Yes.
You know, and I. Is that it? If you want to get pictures. Yeah. I told you that. Like that. That's it.
When you say the last.
Got her to the top of those. Down. I know you guys are.
Oh, yeah.
I've never seen it so big.
Yeah, I'll that. Where it's just.
Yeah, because they were.
Do you know that? So that's.
Just going out there and turning into.
Yeah. So, but if you want Bobcat, you get a dragon.
I'm Karen, the volunteer that had the awesome emergency later this morning. We did not have a room now. I got a couple of years. We decided that. We got it off the side of the road, like back in, so went under the my first sitting. Hours and. It's done, but then when I got
Your advanced training, your hours in these classes.
Got the water. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
great.
yeah. The last two up was the safety column.
And he's like, or, you know, hard, flat, and then they. That was big, no babies. But I just think I would start volunteering. Yeah,
There you go.
If we find a mama or possum and rescue the babies, how do we keep them alive until we get them someplace?
Yeah, put them in a box and keep them warm. Don't feed them anything. You
I
can't-
have a little blanket that I big blanket to keep in my front, so I can keep them warm on that blanket until I can get them someplace.
Yeah, I normally have it. My dog-
I take my mom to the. I can use like a big cover for her.
So you say the line, yeah, come on.
They can tell you.
This morning.
Oh my gosh.
All right, let's go ahead and get started so we have plenty of time for a game later on. All right, we are going to do interpretive guiding, how to be a good guide. So this is helpful information if you are interested in doing any sort of hiking and you would like to help lead hikes. But this is also good information if you are interested in going to any sort of outreach programs and you would like to help at some booths, which I encourage all of you to do to help influence other, recruit other people to our cult, our chapter, to our cause. So just a little bit of information. Well, we're going to skip to the end. So in 2020, nope, that was too many 20s. I took the Certified Interpretive Guide course. It is a intensive course, which is multiple days, where you learn how to be a guide. And so I encourage you to, if you are interested, this is a very brief snippet of what is taught during that course. Okay, so I'm not going to go into every single detail of this, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the purpose of an interpretive program, how to create your own program, steps to follow during any program, techniques to use, handling complications. I'm going to do a few resources, and we're going to do a couple of games, rate a hike and take a hike. All right, first of all, this is kind of an impactful quote for me from the class that I took. Interpretation is, so this is kind of distinguishing what interpretation is versus just something that you get whenever you go to a museum and you read a textbook. Interpretation is an educational activity aiming to reveal meanings and relationships. So we're not just giving information. Interpretation is not just telling people stuff, right? We're creating relationships. We're making connections for people. We're making them care about the content, right? We're not just telling them facts. That's textbook stuff, right? When you go to a museum and you read the placard next to the artwork or next to the statue, that's cool information. Do you remember that information as soon as you read it? No, right? You just say, that's cool, and then you move on, right? You don't remember that. It doesn't impact you. So we're trying to impact those people. So the way that we make our interpretive presentation is we want it to be erotic. Hold on. Erotic stands for enjoyable, relevant, organized, thematic, involving, and creative. I'm not one for remembering acronyms, so don't worry about it. We're going to go through all of these.
but just, things to keep in mind. Enjoyable. What are some things, or who inspired you? Why are you guys here? Who inspired you to be here? Or what happened so that you guys were like, I want to be a master naturalist?
Steve Irwin.
Steve Irwin, love it. Anybody else?
Hamburger.
Okay, cool. From Bamberger Ranch?
Yes.
Love it.
After a lifetime in technology, I wanted no part of it anymore.
Want to be outside. Nice. Just personal inspiration.
I want to be those people that have the shirt with the little thing that have a business in the park that I'm enjoying.
Nice, love it. So, nice. We don't have a,
I volunteer with Texas Wildlife Association, and I went through their adult learn to hunt program, and all the people who can just like point out grasses and trees and birds because they just know. I was like, I want to be that person. So
I love it. I wish we could do it.
After a lifetime of enjoying personal favorite photos.
Nice, love it. So some of us have personal connections, some of us have an individual, some of us have a general love for things. For me, this is me and my dad. And when I was a kid, we went camping with a dad and daughter camping group. And those are some of my strongest childhood memories to me. Being outside with my dad, walking around. I remember very clearly, I was maybe this age, we were hiking somewhere in Oklahoma, and it was just my dad and me hiking, and we were walking up this hill. We had crossed over a creek, and we were walking up along this trail, and for some reason, at some point, the trail kind of got more and more narrow to where at some point, it didn't seem like we were walking along a trail anymore. We were just kind of walking through the woods. And it didn't bother me at all. But my dad kind of said, hey, let's walk up this hill to the very top. Let's see how fast we can get up there. And then we got all the way to the top, and he said, hey, let's see if we can see our camp from here. And it did not faze me at all. And we looked around and we said, oh, there it is. And he said, let's see if we can go back there. And we had to climb over a fence, and we just kind of made a beeline back there. We finally got back to what looks like an actual trail again, and we just got back to our campsite. It wasn't until years later that I thought back on this memory, this very nice little memory for me, that I was like, we were lost. But my dad made that a really nice memory for me. He didn't make it bad. So those are the kinds of memories that we had. And we still go out. He mountain bikes, and I'm on a horse, and then he chases me and I chase him. And we have a great time. We're still outdoors people. But we were just talking about that movie. Yeah, but even more, even less personal, even less individual on a person-to-person basis. Steve Irwin. Yeah, I watched him as a kid. And I thought that was so cool. I don't remember a single thing he said. Like, I don't remember a fact that he said, but I remember the way he made me feel, right? I remember the cool things that he did. I remember Zaboomafoo and the Kratz brothers. They still have a show. And I will tell you what, when I was teaching in schools with TWA, and I saw hundreds of kids a day, it was always the kids who watched the Kratz brothers who could answer all my questions. I don't know what they're doing, but they're doing something that is connecting kids with nature. And they're making it an impact, right? They're making kids feel, right? Not just facts. They're connecting kids with nature. Jane Goodall. Yeah. I don't know facts about the chimps, but I know the way she makes me feel, right? I've read some of her books, and I love the way she makes me feel about nature, right? So it's not just loving the facts. It's not just the information. It's about connection. It's about relationships. It's about being enjoyable. Relevant. When you have a program that is relevant to a specific audience, it will be a better connection. So know who you are talking to when you are giving a presentation. I know that sometimes I am this person who wants to give more than necessary. And I get the glazed faces. And that's when I start to, oh, hold on, I need to take a step back. And I need to make sure everybody's on the same page. Yeah, we get these, like, we're the crazy people. We want to give the scientific names, right? And sometimes that's okay. When we're talking to a bunch of master naturalists, I know you all want to know the scientific names because you think that's cool. Right, a lot of us, yes? But there are lots of people who are like, skip, move on. So we need to relate to emotions, functionality, mystery is a big one here. So when I am talking to a group, and it's not just talking to kids, it's talking to anybody. If I leave a little bit of mystery, if I let people wonder, ask questions, there's a lot more that people will want to seek for themselves, right? They'll want to continue that later on. And I'm not just handing it, I'm not just giving it to you. I'm going to want you to seek out more later. Okay. Don't use too many technical terms, but know your audience. I had to put this in here. Somebody told me to put this in here, honestly, because they found it and said, this is you. Know your audience. Okay, organization. So being organized, of course, can help not only your audience understand you better, but it helps you in being able to deliver the information in a clear and concise way. So knowing what you're going to talk about ahead of time, even if it's a hike, right? Even if you're on a hike and you're like, this seems like something that should be spontaneous. If you take the hike ahead of time and you know that there are some things that you can point out before you get there with your group, that helps, right? Even if there are some things that will be spontaneous, there should be some things that you know ahead of time that can help. So we're going to go back to our high school English with our introduction. Think about our if our talk is like making orange juice. So our introduction is showing our audience an orange, and we're talking about maybe the history of an orange, or orange farms, or citrus. The body is showing how to make orange juice, and then the conclusion is allowing your audience to participate. And this happens not just as an overall, not just from beginning to end, but in each topic. So I'll give examples here in a little bit, but each time we stop, I try to do this. Each time I ask a question, I try to do this. I'll try to give examples in a little bit where hopefully that will make more sense. Topic and theme. These are things that your audience may never know about. I'm not going to necessarily say, my topic for today is trees. And my theme for today is how trees affect your life. You don't have to say it out loud, but it can be something that is in your mind so that you can project it into each part of your presentation, into each part of your hike or your outreach program. What is your goal, basically? Involving creative, I'll tell you what, if you are doing the interpretive guiding course, you're going to spend a lot of time with this and it's going to drive you crazy. they're gonna ask, so what? I'm gonna answer this question, so what? And it's gonna drive you crazy, I'm not gonna do that to you. Involving, creative, be active, be engaging, use vocabulary that's easy to understand. So this again goes back to try not to be too technical when possible. I always try to start with the accessible terms, and it's okay to use terms that are more technical, as long as you start with accessible terms, right? It's okay to use the scientific terms. I don't want to shy away from that. What I like to do, if I have an audience, if I have a mixed audience of ages, of abilities, of knowledge, if I have a group of kids where there are some first graders and there are some sixth graders, I might say, we are going to talk about animal adaptations. And I don't want to say, who knows what an adaptation is? Because that alienates kids, right? That says, I know what it is and you don't, right? What I want to say instead is, we're going to talk about animal adaptations. So things that helps an animal survive. Great, we're all on the same page. We all know this big term now. When in doubt, be more informal, right? So level the playing field for everybody. We don't want to alienate anybody. Cognitive ability, programs for children. Think about, so if you are, this is kind of a passion for me, not only for my junior master naturalists, but I see this a lot of times when I'm like at an outreach or something, when I see adults who are not as comfortable talking with children in a way that makes children know that the adult is talking down to them, and it's the kids are not as engaged. So ways to help them be engaged, ways to help you make you feel comfortable talking with kids. It takes practice, of course, it takes practice. But if you are the kind of person you're like, I know that's me, here are some things to kind of keep in mind. Working with their cognitive abilities, integrate problem solving skills, understanding cause and effect, comparing and contrasting, higher level reasoning. So what this means is ask them questions. Don't just tell them things, ask them questions. So not do you know questions, but what is this? Why do you think that is? What do you think it does? How do you know that? Those kinds of questions. Open-ended questions allow them to give you information instead of giving them information. When possible, in group settings, social emotional skills, group activities, right? Allow them to interact with each other. Physical skills, whole body movement, not just sit and get, giving you information, allow them to interact. Communication, language abilities, like I mentioned, don't just sit there and tell them everything, allow them to give you what they know. It also gives you a chance to understand where they're at. That way, you're not using vocabulary that's too low for them or too high for them. You know how to meet them where they're at. This works for adults too. Okay, a couple of other good things to help meet kids' programs at a good level here. Use space conducive to activity and movement when possible. Open spaces, but remind them of safety procedures, of course. Provide hands-on materials. I'll give you some good examples of hands-on materials that you might want to use if you are interested in doing hikes here in just a minute. Engage their senses. So I know a lot of times kids are told, don't touch that, especially when we're outside, because a lot of times they're with adults who don't know what's safe to touch. Now you are the expert who is telling them it is safe to touch. So allow them to engage their senses. Use tone and language appropriate for their age level. I like to talk to them like adults. This is a lot better than talking to them like they're babies. I, as a former child, know that I hated that. I still hate that. I hate it when I hear adults talk to kids like they're children. And I know that they probably are not a fan of that. Simple, direct, not speaking down to them. But have a management plan in place for behavioral issues. So I used to do hikes for Girl Scouts at the Misty Meadows, Camp Agnes Arnold. And one thing I liked to do is have the roster and have, off the top of my head, know the adults' names and be able to call on the adults if I had, I didn't necessarily have the kids' names memorized, but I could say, hey, Susan, will you do me a favor and come, stand here with me? Or, the adult. Oh, hey, Emily, will you come help me with these friends over here? Have the adults who are with you. So this is most of the time in our being a master naturalist, you're not going to be the only adult there, right? You're not going to be by yourself with a bunch of kids. That's our management plan. Activity ideas, just for top of the head, things that are easy go-tos if you're ever in a pinch. Camouflage trail, hide things ahead of time. Things that you can easily find, so you don't leave trash behind. This is a bandana. Just leave a couple bandanas around, and or whatever it is that you have, piece of paper, something like that. Things that maybe won't blow away, I guess. And just tie them to a tree or something, and say, I have things. I have this many things, and we're going to go along the trail. And it is your job to find, point out, use your hand to point at those things, or however many kids you have. I have one thing for each of you guys to find. That kind of thing. Micro hike. It's amazing. You don't have a lot of space. You don't have a long trail, or you just have a hula hoop sized place to be. It's amazing how long a child will stand in place with a magnifying glass. And of course, there are lots of cool resources online. Scavenger hunt bingos are very accessible for pretty much anything. There's a lot of things that are already there online for you. This is one that I just found very easily. Okay, quick pause. Any thoughts, questions? Cool. All right. Steps to follow when you are, this is specifically, I'm going to give specific examples when I am leading hikes. So I think of my introduction, knowledge of your audience techniques, and handling complications. We're going to start with our introduction and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If we go back to our high school psychology, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I notice we're not going to talk about all of these, but when I am taking Girl Scouts on a hike, for example, I'm taking any group on a hike, or just in general, when I'm meeting with a group let me back up. Let's say you have friends coming over and you're going to somebody's house and you've never been to this person's house before, and you walk into their house and they say, hi, welcome, come on in, make yourself at home. I'm gonna be in the kitchen. You're like, okay, are we a shoes on kind of house, or also I've been driving for a couple hours and really to go to the bathroom, but I just like wander around. I'm hungry, I'm thirsty. You feel lost, right? And maybe it's not like a super panicky feeling, but it's definitely there, right? Versus you walk into a friend's house you've never been to for the first time, and they say, hi, welcome, please leave your shoes at the door. You can put it in the closet here. The restroom's just down the hall. I'm going to be in the kitchen. Can I get you something to drink? I'm going to be making food. This is much better, right? We're meeting our needs. We're meeting our physiological needs. Maybe we don't need sleep at that moment, but we need food, water, shelter. We're providing these things, okay? So make it clear, if we're going on a hike, we want to make it clear the amount of time we'll be spending away from some of these needs. If I'm taking kids out on a hike, I'm gonna say, hey, we're gonna be stepping away from the nature center, and this is your last chance to use the restroom for the next 20 minutes. I don't wanna use the restroom. The water fountain is right here next to the restroom. Take your last drink, or you bring your water bottle with you, right? Water restroom. Make sure you have bug spray, right? That kind of thing. That's also kind of a need because that's a comfort thing. When we are walking around and I stop and I'm pointing things out, I notice maybe where the sun is. And if the sun is in my friends' faces and I'm comfortable, they're not thinking about what I'm saying. They're thinking about how uncomfortable they are because the sun is directly in their face. That's a need that I'm not needing. So I shift. Like, okay, everybody shift this way. Let's get you guys in the shade. So you have a shelter. Right? I might not say that out loud, but I just consciously, hey, why don't you guys stand over here in the shade? And let's, while you're there, look over here at this plant, whatever it is. I'm conscious of these things. Take note of how many are in your hike. This is one of those things, again, it sounds obvious, but make sure you have the same number at the beginning as at the end. Or more at the end and the beginning is fine also. Just same number or more. Take regular breaks to survey your people, especially depending on how long your hike is. I know that I am a fast walker. I need to take more breaks than some people do on their hikes because I need to make sure that I'm not missing the end of my group. So just be aware of yourself and how you hike, how you walk. And again, make an effort to be personal. We'll talk about naming or using names here in a minute. Right now, actually. Learning names. I try, especially if I'm going to be on a hike for longer time or multiple days or something, or multiple times I might be seeing these people. I do try to use people's names if possible, because it does create a connection for people, and it does help people want to be connected to that space a little bit more. Pay attention and consciously use their name when possible. If you are the kind of person who is like, I'm not good with names, one way to help is alliteration, rhyming, relate to someone you know with the same name. But I will tell you, don't say that you have a pet with the same name. I learned that. Personal. My pets' names have always been people's names, but I've learned that children don't like when you say my dog's name is that name also. I'm so sorry. To me, that's a compliment, but to the child, they're like, okay, cool. My name is not a dog's name. Like, no, my dog's name is a people's name. So I just said, my best friend's name is that. That works. Use lists available and take notes if possible. So I used to do this with my Girl Scouts. Girl Scout hikes were a bit longer for me, so this was more applicable for using their names. But in the beginning, I would call out all their names, and I did tell them I'm taking notes. I wouldn't just take notes and write their names or whatever, because that's a little creepy if they're calling out their names. But I tell them, hey, I'm gonna call out your name, and I'm gonna take a little note by your name just so I can make sure I remember who's who. I write down red shirt or pigtails or whatever. And that helped me later on. And it helped them know that I was making an effort to be personal. Okay, lastly, don't make excuses. I know I have a weird name that people forget all the time. And one of the more annoying things is when people tell me, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. I'm so bad with names and yada yada. Don't make excuses. It's silly. Just say, I'm sorry, tell me your name again. It's over. My name is Adrian. I'm happy to tell you 100 times my name is Adrian, because that's always my name. Okay, attention getting techniques. When you're in a big group and you need their attention, there are a few things to remember. One, always start with the full attention of the group. You see this a lot of times when you have a big group of people and somebody starts talking in the front of the group and people are still talking and the person at the front just starts talking and they just act like the people aren't talking, you're setting a tone that what you have to say isn't important. Don't do that. You are important. What you have to say is important. Make sure that everyone knows it. Don't start talking without the full attention of the group. Engage destructive guests. There are a few ways that you can do this. You can be the weird teacher who just talks, walks over to the disruptive person and, slowly goes through. Or, I like to, if you know their names, Dana, you're really gonna love this. We're about to talk about birds next, and I know you love birds. I'd love if you listen to this. You're gonna love this. If you make that connection, they're gonna be, oh, I'm perking up. I know I wasn't listening before, but she called me out, and I know that she knows that I love birds, so I'm really excited to listen to this. And you're more likely to continue to listen. Use hand gestures or claps. This is pretty, I think, global that people will, right? But in a outdoor setting, I try not to do loud things like that. And so what I like to do is in the beginning, I might say, hey, when I'm trying to get your attention, I'm going to grow some antlers. If you see me grow antlers, I want you to grow antlers as well. And if you see your friend next to you grow antlers, you grow antlers. And deer are silent. They don't make noise. So grow antlers and be silent like a deer, right? Or do something like that. Make up something. Or I say, if you can hear me, grow butterfly wings. Or stand on your foot like a penguin or like a flamingo. Or do something silly. And kids start to pay attention to that. Leverage your physical environment. Be aware, especially if you're outside. If you're lower than everybody else and everybody's up high, they can't see you or hear you, that's going to be affecting why maybe they're not paying attention to you. And then again, treat attention with the respect it deserves. So this kind of goes back to the first point, but when you start to speak, be prepared to speak. If you've ever met a toddler and they come up to you and they go, hey, 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 and you finally give them your attention, okay, what is it? And they go, never mind. Run away. That's so annoying, right? Adults do this too, but just less different. They go, okay, everybody, can I get your attention? Actually, hold on a second. And then they start to mess with the computer or do something else, and that's annoying, right? So if you're asking for people's attention, be prepared to speak. Know your audience. Talks about this a little bit, but be prepared to meet the needs of your visitors. I talked about this a little bit, so I'm going to kind of speed through this. Recognize when to let visitors interact with the resource on their own and not interfere. You don't always have to be talking. You don't always have to be showing. You don't always have to be doing everything for them. I wanted to make sure to introduce this concept. This is very important. I don't always like to read everything out loud, but this is really important. Effectively meeting the needs of visitors with disabilities is not only a legal mandate, but it is also a moral responsibility. Being aware ahead of time of what people can expect is important. If you know the group you're meeting ahead of time and you can contact them ahead of time and let them know, hey, there are some difficulties, there will be some routes on this trail that may impact anybody with a wheelchair, or maybe there will be moms with strollers or dads with strollers, or any sort of anything that can impact, or this trail will be this long. That can impact the way that people decide how to go on the trail, that kind of thing. Let people decide for themselves, but make sure that people are aware and make sure that you can accommodate when possible. All right. Techniques on storytelling. Activity, demonstration, analogy, metaphor, simile. Storytelling is an art. I know not everybody is comfortable with storytelling and doesn't feel like they're the best storyteller, and that is okay. It does take practice. And if you are interested in leading hikes, the best way to get better is to do the hike and find places where you would like to tell a story, and then repeat the story. Do it with your friends, do it with your family. Bring people out there who are not strangers and repeat it. Discussion, questions, these are all a part of techniques, right? Okay, a few things that you can bring with you, but make sure that these are not distracting from your hike or your interpretive talk. Field guides, binoculars, hand lenses, thermometer. Of course, you don't want to be carrying all this heavy stuff with you all the time, but things that can be helpful, can be cool to have, tactile, fun, cool to use, and easy to use. App on your phone for playing bird calls, or Merlin for showing people what bird is that you're hearing, even if you don't know what bird you're hearing. Those are good. Handling complications. I like this picture in the background because it just shows that there's no such thing as bad weather, only being unprepared for it, right? Speaking skills is one of the most common complications you might encounter. There are people who have difficulty with certain, audio complications. So volume, of course, is going to be common. I can't hear you, even if I'm standing right next to you. That's okay. I know some people who have a Bluetooth hearing aid, and they may have a certain device that can connect and you can wear. That's super cool. Be aware that that can be a thing that you may have to do. The rate, I know I'm a fast talker. Be aware of how you speak. The pitch at which you speak. There are some people who have a harder time hearing low pitch or higher pitch. So being aware of yourself can help and know that there are some people who have a harder time with one or the other. So trying to be at a moderate pitch can be helpful for some people. Articulation and pronunciation. If you know you have an accent, just be aware of it. There may be certain words that you speak that are harder to understand for some people. And so being aware that you have to use a synonym for a word. So there may be people whose English is not their first language. So if you use a word that is a scientific word, be aware that you have to use a synonym or synonyms in order to make sure that everybody understands what you're saying. Making eye contact. This is not only important for just polite readings, but also because there are some people who really, without even knowing that they do sometimes, rely on reading lips. So even if you're hiking and you're talking, it's important to know how to sometimes walk backwards and just know where you're going. If you can't do that, that's okay. Stop and talk, and then turn around and walk. Just be aware of your limitations. Last one, repeat visitor questions so everyone can hear them. The person right next to you asking the question and the people around them might hear, but the person in the back might be like, oh, I'm sure that was a really cool question. I wonder what it was. That can be a really alienating thing for some people to feel like I'm not part of the cool group, right? So you want to make sure that everyone feels like they're involved. Repeating the question, even if you think everybody heard it, they may not have. So that can make sure that everyone is a part of it. A good method for making sure that everyone's needs are met when there is a complication, I have learned, is the laugh method. Sometimes there are people who have a complication And all they need is to tell you about it. And so the step one is just listen without interruption. Sometimes that's all people need. And acknowledge and understand where they're coming from as best as possible. Sometimes that's the solution. Sometimes they just want to tell you about it. But if you can, make sure to give a solution and make sure to follow up with that solution if possible. Give solutions. Okay, a few resources. We're going to play a quick game. Make sure I'm giving plenty of time. So we're done at noon, right? All right, a few resources if you're interested in, and I put YouTube at the bottom. I know you all know what YouTube is, but if you can find, there are plenty of cool resources out there on people who have led hikes, and not just the Nature Hikes one, but a lot of cool point of view hikes out there, or presentations where they're really, really great presentations that are following interpretive guide presentation styles. So if you would like to become a certified, interpretive guide, interpnet.com is the way to do that. It is not cheap. I'm so sorry. I don't know why they do that, but that would be the way to do that. Okay, I'm going to do a couple of these to rate a hike. I'm going to show you a scenario, and I'm going to show you a picture of, there will be people who are taking a hike, and there will be a blurb. I will point out who I believe is the leader of the hike. I'm going to read out what they're saying in the way that, in my mind, they're saying it. And then I want you guys to give a score. Just show me on your hands. Those of you guys on the owl, you guys can write it in the chat. 0 to 10, how that made you feel. Okay. So in this case, the lady in the middle with the camera, standing up taller with a hat, she's our leader. And she says, when we stand here on the trail, we are imitating some of the earliest colonial settlers of the American West. Stephen F. Austin stood on this exact spot and overlooked this same landscape, but it looked very different than it does now. Would you believe me if I told you there are more trees here now than there were in the late 1800s? Why do you think the landscape has changed so drastically? Give me a score out of 10 in your hands. How do you feel that this leader rates in terms of interpretive guiding? 7, 8, 9, 10, 8. On our chat, anybody online?
No, there's nobody.
There's nobody online? Everybody's here?
Yeah.
Wow, I was just like.
We are recording. So.
Oh, okay. I was just like showing the skulls.
That's okay, that's
okay. Like somebody else can watch it later. Okay. All right, that's pretty good. So that's a lot of pretty high scores. Some of you guys had a few lower. You said 6. So I think you were one of the lower ones. So what could have made this a better score for you? What are some criticisms you have?
It seemed like maybe she could have asked questions in the beginning and then maybe kind of explained it a little bit better.
Okay.
In front of them, having them look at what she wants them to look at, like standing in front of where she wants them to be looking.
Okay.
Standing behind them like that.
So instead of standing behind them, standing.
Like facing them, like where I am right now.
Okay.
What you're looking at behind me is.
Okay.
The sun.
And asking, and they're looking into the sun. Yeah, don't like that. Okay, so it takes off a couple of points. Okay, asking questions at the beginning instead of telling at the beginning. Okay, anybody else have anything you would change? What are some good things? Things you like?
The open-ended question at the end.
Open-ended questions, good.
It explains why it's important that you're standing there looking at whatever you're looking at.
Okay, good, important, yeah.
Yeah, like kind of explaining like the landscape that they're like standing at, like in front of you, like you used to look like this.
Yeah, like historical
Good
images. Yeah, she's connecting them with like this history. Yeah, yeah,
I like that it's immersive, like you can teach about Stephen F. Austin in a classroom. It's like, okay, that's cool, but to stand where he actually stood, and see what he actually saw, because
yeah,
it's, I think it sticks in the brain better than just learning about it in a classroom.
sure, for sure. Yeah,
Maybe a little mystery she put in with the people.
yeah,
Because it doesn't seem logical to be more trees.
No,
Yeah.
Great.
yeah, little mystery. There's some of that mystery we talked about earlier. Good, I like that. Okay. All right, this guy on the right, he's our leader in this scenario. And he says, you probably know what kind of tree this is. If you don't, then I bet you're not from around here. This is an eastern red cedar. It has needle-like leaves. The female trees have little blue berries. If you put these berries in vodka, you can make gin. Give me a score out of 10. 4, 5. What? Okay, let me give you some criticisms.
It's condescending.
Condescending. Yeah, we feel a little alienated, like, all right, sir. Don't like that.
You really ask them any questions or get their traits and.
Yeah, just kind of told them things. Yeah. What else?
The positive side, but he's facing them and their faces are not into the sun.
Yeah, I mean, it's very shaded. But yeah, he's facing them. He's kind of giving that good.
What if somebody was on the wagon and then he's telling them?
Okay.
You know, age appropriate.
May not be age appropriate. Yeah, for sure. I see some younger faces over here on this side. I'm not sure that that would be information to give to a younger audience, for sure. So definitely knowing your audience comes up here. Good. Good. So tone, missing some mystery and some questions here. Yeah, age appropriate, knowing your audience. Good. All right, only guy here, but yeah. Here's our leader. He says, remember our #1 rule of mushroom hunting? That's right. Never touch it unless you're 100% sure that you know what it is. This one I know is safe to touch, and we can pass it around in a minute. As you hold this fungi fruit, I want you to pay close attention to the gills on the underside. Tell me, what do you notice about how it looked and feels compared to one we saw earlier? Give me a score. 8, 9, 10, 7. Okay. 6. Michael. What do you not like? What could change?
He started with, remember our #1 rule? Didn't let anybody answer, almost like it was a rhetorical question. That's right, we never touch it.
Okay.
At least let them answer.
Okay. In my mind, there was a break in here, and somebody answered, and he said that's right.
Oh, okay.
But yes, yeah. Sure. I get that. Okay. Any other criticism? Something that you would do differently? Yeah.
I feel like he's talking too much before the question.
Okay.
Take out a couple of sentences and then ask the question and then talk about it. I don't know.
Sure. Yes, I mean, yeah.
I feel like you could probably ask, is this mushroom safe to touch, and then engage in the whole.
Okay, different way to approach it. That's good. Like that. What do we? Yeah, go ahead.
It's not facing them.
He's not what?
Facing them so they can't hear.
He might be kind of low. Yeah, there might be some people in the back of his audience that might not be able to hear him. Yeah, he might have a small group, but yeah, if he's got a big group and he's sitting down here, there might be people in the back who are missing a lot of that information. That's good. What do we like about this? Y'all gave it high scores. What do we like about it? Very interactive. Yeah?
Looks like he's dressed appropriately.
Dressed appropriately. Good. He's got good safety gear on. That's setting a good example.
And it seems as though he's repeating information to, so they remember it.
Yeah, so
So we taught this earlier and now you're supposed to remember here.
making connections, good. Yes. Cool. All right, I'm gonna skip this, skip these. Okay, I'm gonna give you a couple of examples. And I'm gonna let you guys, we're gonna do this real quick and then I'm gonna pass it over to our Jeopardy game. I'm gonna give you 3 examples of some things that I see on hikes. And I'm gonna let you guys give examples of something that you would say if you saw something like this. If you were on a hike and you saw this, what is something that you might say? Give me, be a leader. Somebody raise their hand. And then I'll give you an example of something I would say. Yeah.
Watch your step. I don't know what it is.
Okay, no worries. Watch your step. I was hiking along and I saw this on the side of the trail. What would you say?
Oh, like, this is probably moist.
It's probably moist over here. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, maybe like, probably saying, some example, a tree that's been being degraded and moss is really sensitive, so at least on some.
Okay. Yeah, good.
Might say something about how fluffy and soft the moss might feel to get the kids to like engage with it.
Love it. So we're getting into sensory stuff here. Good.
Depending on the level of the group, I might discuss what type of moss it is.
Ah, good. So you're getting into knowing your audience like that.
You could just say something about, you notice that this is different than what we've seen all day. And now all of a sudden we have this fluffy stuff and ask questions like, what do you think could have caused that?
Yeah.
Talk about it, it's a down tree and all that.
Yeah. This is a nurse log. And I love nurse logs because this is one of my favorite kinds of trees. And sometimes what I do is I ask kids, what kind of tree is this? And they might say, maybe a pine or an oak. And they start naming off kinds of trees and it's a dead one. It doesn't matter what kind of tree it was because it's a dead one. And we call it a nurse log because it is nursing new life. And we see all kinds of new things growing on it. We see some grasses, we see some mosses, and you guys feel the moss and it's so super soft and I love that. We see fungi and bacteria, invertebrates, and all of these FBI are breaking down and decomposing our nurse log and helping it become soil. And it will nurture our soil and turn it into new plants. And it's creating new life. So one cool thing we can turn into, we see this everywhere, but one small thing we can turn into a whole new thing. Okay, we got 2 leaves here. What are some things you might want to say about our leaves?
Are we looking at them at the same time?
Sure. Or separately. Either way you want to look at it.
What do we know?
One leaf for another.
Size of the leaves comparing.
Yeah.
And the shape.
Shape of the leaf.
Similar shape, but very different size.
Yeah. Shape, size of leaves.
How do you use them to identify?
How to identify leaves? That's what I would do. That's what I usually do. So I have, so what kind of tree does this come from?
An oak.
Oak, yes. What kind of oak? White or red?
White.
How do you know? Rounded, low leaves. That's right. So I remember this. There's like a kind of a mnemonic way I remember this. So and I think of Santa, the cartoon Santa. So Santa's hat is what color? Red. He has a pointy red hat. And red oaks have pointy leaves, whereas his rounded white mittens are round. And the white oak have rounded lobes on their leaves. So it's fun when you get to find in the springtime very tiny little leaves, but this leaf will grow into something very, very big. That's kind of fun. Especially when you find like a bur oak and then you find really big acorns with it. What might you say about pine cones? You might find a lot of pine cones around here. Martha.
Well, those are obviously 3 different types of trees, so 3 different types of pine cones. So if the group was familiar with types of trees, I would have them identify which pine cone came from which tree.
Cool.
Letter asking why the pine cones are closed or open.
I love that. Yeah, for sure.
Depending on the month, like let's say if it was February and I was with adults, we would make it fun, like, see that yellow stuff, But if it was like little kids, it'd be like, hey, which one of these pine cones would be best for a bird?
Yeah. Good one. When I like to talk about the pine cones, squirrels. So what I like to do is I stop at a pine tree and I ask people, okay, so what kind of tree is it? And then how do you know? And we don't have to look up, we can look down, look at the needles, look at the pine cones, and then I send the kids on an expedition. I say, everyone find me a pine cone, find me a good pine cone. And then I start ripping pine cones apart to find the pine nuts. And then I tell them that we're being squirrels. And then we talk about the different kinds of squirrels we have. We have fox squirrels, we have gray squirrels, and we have flying squirrels. And I get kids go, we have flying squirrels? Yes, we have flying squirrels, the little nocturnal ones. They're super cute and they glide, right? And if we see a pine cone that looks like this, it's probably been eaten by a squirrel. And they eat those little pine nuts, and I show them, if I find a pine seed, a pine nut, I show them that little tiny pine seed, and they're amazed that that little tiny pine seed can grow into that big, tall pine tree with just a little help from water and soil. So we go through all these little phases, and we do this with questions, we do this with stories, and we can talk about many different things for just one little. And I send them on a little expedition, and then from then on, they're all trying to find pine cones for the rest of the hike as well. Okay, cool. Questions, thoughts? I don't want to take any more time because actually we have a fun Jeopardy game. So thank you very much. I hope you guys learned something new. Yeah.